Okay. You settled?
I'm settled. Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Good afternoon and welcome to a very busy and active Port of Baltimore. Thank you for coming. I'm Maryland Transportation Secretary Paul Wiedefeld. From the cargo ship you see behind me to the longshoremen who are processing the containers, the bustling Port of Baltimore is a direct result of the extraordinary work of the men and women with unified command. Thank you so much. Let me begin first of many here today are going to express my profound appreciation to the entire team for working together to achieve our shared goals and reopen the full shipping channel. The Port of Baltimore is an economic engine that is revving up to be stronger than ever before. I'm confident that this port will rapidly return to its top ranks in handling cargo. And it will continue to be an industry leader in creating jobs and expanding business. I want to thank President Biden, Secretary Buttigieg, Director Tom Perez, and everyone at USDOT for their tremendous support through this whole effort. Finally, today's major milestone would not have happened as quickly as it did if it were not for Governor Wes Moore. Determined, he was swiftly moved to support the people impacted by this tragedy. The governor's directives kept our focus on the victims and guided all of us to achieve the goals in a matter of weeks, not months. It is now my honor to welcome Maryland's steadfast leader, Governor Wes Moore.
Good afternoon. It's a great afternoon. Great afternoon. And I've been waiting to say this for every day for the last 11 weeks. Maryland, the Fort McHenry Channel is fully cleared and the Port of Baltimore is reopened for business. And while this moment is historic, it was not given. This moment was earned. And we are here this afternoon to recognize the people who brought us to this moment. And so before I go any further, I want to recognize Scott Cowan and our brothers and sisters of the International Longshoremen's Association. Scott, God bless you and thank you and all your members. You cannot understand Baltimore's strength, and you cannot understand Maryland's pride without our Port of Baltimore. Not just because the port handles more cars and more farm equipment than any other port in this country. Not just because the port manages tens of billions of dollars in cargo every single year, including everything from sugar to cement to lumber, but because importantly, there are over 15,000 Marylanders who depend on the Port of Baltimore to pay their bills, who depend on the Port of Baltimore to support their families, and nearly 140,000 Americans whose jobs are linked to this port. And so, these last 11 weeks, I'm going to wait for our aero assets to move forward. So while I know these last 11 weeks, they have tested many of them. At least 8,000 longshoremen on the docks have jobs that were directly impacted by the Key Bridge collapse. Thousands more were affected too. But by moving as a team, by moving united, and by being Maryland tough and Baltimore strong, vessel traffic is fully reopened to the Port of Baltimore, and our brothers and sisters from ILA, today they are back on the job. But today didn't just happen. We made today happen. This has been a remarkably complex operation spanning multiple objectives, hundreds of assets, and thousands of people. And first, I want to thank our remarkable first responders and every single member of Unified Command. Unified Command has been tireless and haven't rested and haven't slept in weeks. Over the last 11 weeks, Unified Command has removed over 50,000 tons of bridge wreckage from the water. And importantly, they did it with no injuries. We said from the start, we lost 6 Marylanders. We're not losing anymore. And this team did remarkable work without a single person being injured. This team is composed of hundreds of public servants, and I want to recognize just a few this afternoon. First, Rear Admiral Shannon Gilreath from the United States Coast Guard. Admiral, thank you so much for your leadership. And second, Major General Butch Graham from the Army Corps of Engineers. Sir, thank you so much for your work and leadership. And the Coast Guard and the Army Corps were joined by the fantastic work of the Maryland State Police, the Department of the Environment, the Maryland Transportation Authority, and the Navy SUPSOLV and all of their partners. They are the country's best, and we are grateful that they are here and they did this work on our behalf. This has been a truly unified effort. And I remember that morning, on March 26th, the only certainty was uncertainty. And many said it would take multiple months for us to get to this point. Some said even up to a year. Well, Maryland, this team did the unimaginable by many. And instead of 11 months, we got this thing done in 11 weeks. And I also want to be very clear, this would not have happened without our extraordinary partners in the Biden-Harris administration. Now, I remember the first phone call that I got from the White House was around 3:30 that morning. And they've been in lockstep with us every single step of the way. They helped us to stand up the Small Business Administration's recovery centers in Baltimore to help individuals and businesses affected by the collapse. They delivered $60 million in emergency funding just days after the bridge fell. President Biden himself took the time to come to Baltimore and to meet with us about the path forward. Maryland is deeply grateful for the leadership of President Biden and the leadership of Vice President Harris. And we are so thankful for their absolutely lights out team. And I want to recognize 2 of our friends from the administration who are with us today and who have been with us every single step of the way. Our Transportation Secretary, Pete Buttigieg. And our Senior Advisor, Tom Perez. Thank you both for your friendship. Thank you both for your leadership. I could not be more proud of our president and this administration. I cannot be more proud of the leadership that every member of this team has demonstrated. Because today didn't just happen. We made today happen. I also want to thank the lawmakers and the elected officials at every single level of government, from our local leaders to our state legislators to our federal partners. Every piece of this operation affected every other piece of this operation. And we had to work with everybody. We worked across party lines, coordinated funding, support programs, law enforcement, and countless public assets. So many who were here today, and I want to thank our county executive, Johnny Olszewski, for his leadership and the work that he's continued to do. Also, I see our county executive, Stuart Pittman from Anne Arundel County, and also Mark Elwood from Montgomery County as well. Mark. And I want to thank a few others as well. I see our Speaker of the House, Adrienne Jones, and the work that she did to move the legislature to get to work. And the few others who couldn't be here today. For example, our Mayor of Baltimore City, Brandon Scott, who I was just speaking with a little bit earlier, who I have to say has been absolutely outstanding, been a great partner in every sense of the word. Also and also our Senate President, Bill Ferguson, who I know I think is on his way over here, but if he's not here, I wanted to cheer loud enough that he can hear us when he's on his way. There he goes. Good to see Mr. President. Our federal delegation, where I have the most outstanding federal delegation that any governor could ever ask for. So our senators, Ben Cardin, our senators, Chris Van Hollen, Congressman Kwesi Mfume, who I actually just got off the phone with, and as we speak, he is working the Hill for 100% federal funding on it. So keep working, Congressman Mfume, and thank you. And to our entire congressional delegation, both Democrats and Republicans. Because I think if there's one thing that we've shown in Maryland is that progress is not partisan. That progress requires partnership. And Team Maryland is stronger today than ever before. I have never been more confident that this is Maryland's decade. And I've seen how each and every person in Maryland works together to get things done. All gas, no brakes. Today didn't just happen. We made today happen. I also want to thank our friends who have stepped up across society in all parts of our community, including our poor community and also the private sector. Moving in partnership is not just about government moving together. It's about all parts of society being willing to work together and to make big things happen. And this team worked with us to ensure that commerce continued to flow through the port even after the bridge fell, and helped to avoid mass layoffs. The remarkable leadership of our port administrator, Jonathan Daniels. Mark Schmidt from Ports America Chesapeake. A VP of Corporate Relations at Domino's Sugar, Peter O'Malley. And all the members of the Maryland Tough and Baltimore Strong Alliance who have committed over $16 million for relief efforts. And by the way, that includes two of our pride and joys, the Baltimore Orioles and the Baltimore Ravens. Thank you to each and every one of you who shows what it means to be Maryland Tough and Baltimore Strong. Because today did not just happen. Today was made to happen. And last, but certainly and absolutely not least, I want to thank my team. I know we're joined here today by leaders who have been absolutely essential to this work, by leaders who took this work personal, by leaders who stuck up for each other and cared for each other and never forgot our mission. My partner in this work, our Lieutenant Governor, Aruna Miller. Thank you, Aruna. Our Transportation Secretary, the absolutely tireless Paul Wiedefeld. And all of the members of the Moore-Miller administration. You all have been tremendous partners in this effort. And I couldn't be more proud to be your colleague. This work is much bigger than one person. It required all of us. And every single one of you stepped up. And while Unified Command cleared the channel, all of my colleagues and all of our leaders in state government had to take care of the people in our state. And you've heard me say before, mission first, people always. We worked with the General Assembly to pass the Port Act to support workers and businesses. And just 4 weeks after the bridge collapse, we stood up 5 different economic and financial relief programs to help Marylanders that have been impacted by this collapse. We approved $37 million in assistance to businesses and workers because of that partnership. We protected more than 3,000 jobs from layoffs because of that partnership. We provided $6.4 million in assistance to minority and women-owned businesses because of that partnership. We've helped people like Matt, who's the co-founder of a small 30-person food company based in Baltimore City. His organization depends on the port to move food between small farmers and consumers, and they manage hundreds of containers every single year. Collectively, we've been able to help people like Donald, who's a member of the International Longshoremen's Association and has been a refrigerator mechanic for the last 9 years. He and his wife purchased a new home just 3 months before the collapse, and a new car literally just 3 hours before the bridge fell. These are just 2 of the stories of the thousands of Marylanders we've been able to support because of the actions that we've taken together. I could not be more proud of this team. I could not be more proud of this state. I could not be more proud of the members of the Moore-Miller administration, because today didn't just happen. We made today happen. Now I know, and it's never going to be lost on me, that there are 6 people who cannot be with us today to celebrate this moment. The Marylanders who died when the Key Bridge fell. And to the families of our victims, we continue to pray for you, and we always will. Continuamos orando por ustedes, y lo seguiremos haciendo. And because of this incredible team, we've been able to bring closure and comfort to all 6 families who've been affected by this tragedy. And our work with these families will continue. So I want to end with this. After the bridge fell, we laid out 4 directives to bring closure and comfort to the families of the individuals we lost, to clear the full federal channel, and to fully reopen the Port of Baltimore to vessel traffic, to support everyone affected by the crisis, from our workers to our small businesses to our first responders, and to rebuild the Francis Scott Key Bridge. We promise to bring each of these priorities to completion, even though success was never guaranteed. But by working together, by having each other's backs, we've achieved the first 3 of our 4 directives: bring closure to the families, reopen the channel, and support our people. But in this administration, we don't settle for almost. We don't settle for urging. We finish the work that we start. So one day, and soon, we will be able to look out at the Patapsco. Now that we can see that the dolly's gone, now that we can see that the wreckage is cleared, we know that progress is possible. But I will not be satisfied until I can look over on the Patapsco and see the Key Bridge standing tall again. We're going to keep working with President Biden. We're going to keep working with members of Congress from both sides of the aisle, and we are going to make that vision a reality. That is the push. That's the promise. And we don't break our promises. We're going to get it done. And by moving in partnership, that's how we're going to do it. Because we're Maryland, we win. And even if sometimes we get knocked down, don't count on us staying there. because we're going to get back up. That's what it means to be Maryland tough and Baltimore strong. You hear that? It's a beautiful sound. It's a beautiful sound. And I could not think of anything more fitting than to turn the microphone over to somebody who was there that first morning and who said, we're going to be with you every step of the way, Governor. And to now be with him that morning of March 26th. And to be with him now with the full federal channel reopening. It's only appropriate that we're able to have this full circle moment with someone who is a true partner in this work and has been an outstanding friend inside this work. U.S. Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg.
Thank you, Governor, and good afternoon. It is a full circle moment. We've been thinking about this moment and working toward this moment since the Governor and I first had that first conversation in the literally and figuratively dark hours of that morning. And Governor Moore has led with clarity, with compassion, and with purpose. And that leadership is such a huge part of why we were able to mark this occasion today. You are fortunate to have the leadership that you do here in the state of Maryland. Likewise, I want to thank and recognize and praise all of the different organizations and agencies that came together to be part of this, many of them represented here. Mayor Scott, who I know cannot be here, but who was part of this from the first moments. County Executive Johnny Olszewski. The members of the Maryland delegation, who, as Governor Moore noted, can't be here because they are doing the work of the American people and the people of Maryland on Capitol Hill as we speak. The interagency partners, including the Unified Command, the Coast Guard, the Army Corps, the first responders, and the extraordinary workers of the Port of Baltimore who are here right now. You have given us and your community so much to be proud of. What happened that early morning of March 26th was horrific. What happened next was inspiring. And it is what happened next and every day since that day that has allowed us to come together and mark and celebrate the fact that as of today, as of this week, the channel is open, the ships are moving, the terminals are operating, and this great American port is full steam ahead. President Biden made clear from that first day in those early hours that the federal government would do everything that we could to support the city, the county, the state, to get the Port of Baltimore back open and to get that bridge rebuilt. And what followed was an embrace of the people of Baltimore by the whole administration and really by the whole country to get this port back open in less than 100 days. Our Department of Transportation was proud to play our role in that teamwork, from the coordination and convening of key players to mitigate the impact of the shock to our national supply chains, to the $60 million release of emergency relief funding, a down payment on the work ahead, and the regular consulting we are doing with Secretary Wiedefeld and his outstanding MDOT team on their early work to rebuild that bridge. We revised a grant that was in the works to rush funds to Trade Point Atlantic, a nearby terminal, so they could quickly increase the amount of cargo that they could take in and help them effectively double their capacity to help handle the auto imports and exports while the port was closed. We engaged truck drivers and trucking companies, trade associations, food and agriculture stakeholders, everyone who had a stake in making sure that the port closure could be addressed and that we got through this as quickly as possible. And I need to acknowledge the ways that the Biden-Harris administration prepared us to handle a shock to the supply chain, even if we could not have imagined its nature or its proportions in advance. We were able to mount that response largely to the work of the White House Supply Chains Disruptions Task Force and the lessons that we learned in recent years, especially from COVID, that put us in a strong place to mitigate the disruptions to our supply chain and economy. Through our secure data sharing platform known as Flow that was created to deal with COVID, we're able to share data with public and private partners as far away as the Port of Savannah, the Port of New York and New Jersey, giving us a better view of our complex supply chains. And today, I am proud to announce that we have a new member joining that partnership, Ports America Chesapeake. That news comes at a welcome and important time. As the Port of Baltimore reopens, that transparency is going to be vital for preparing for the next phase. For over 2 months, crews have worked day and night to get us to today, including with incredibly difficult conditions at times that made visibility very challenging. Let's resume our program as soon as we know he's taken care of.
Hi, everybody. Before we turn it over, I just wanted to very briefly say Ryan is doing well. He's up too, and he's very excited that the port is now reopened. Just wanted to make sure everyone knew that. I'm excited to turn it back over to our Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg.
Thanks, Governor, and I said just about everything I came here to say. It does make me reflect on three things we're noting today. First responders, teamwork, and things working out as you'd hoped. So in that spirit, glad Ryan's all right. And again, just want to reiterate the huge thanks to everybody who's here. People will look back on this moment and the resilience that was shown and the determination of Baltimore to come back stronger than ever. My 2.5-year-old daughter asked me about my work, which didn't used to happen. And I was trying to think how to explain what we'd be up to this week. And I said, well, I'm helping fix a bridge. And she said, so you get the tape? I said, no, unfortunately, this one's going to take more than tape. I'm focused on the emergency relief funding. But I think something else that even a child could understand is people coming together to deal with the problem and make things better. And that is what this community has shown with remarkable, remarkable resilience. And so in that spirit, I have the pleasure of turning it over to a teammate, a good friend, and a great Marylander who engages every level of government on behalf of President Biden. Please welcome a great Marylander in Tom Perez.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be here. You know, the Port of Baltimore is over 300 years old. The president's great-great-grandfather worked here as a waterman in this bay. This port is older than our republic, and it's been through some ups and downs. And I remember March 26th, that morning, sitting in the Oval Office with the president as we confronted the unimaginable. And the president said then, and I quote, "We will move heaven and earth to help the state of Maryland, to help the victims, to rebuild, and to use this as an example of how government works together." He enlisted a whole of government effort. Everyone here, our federal family, as Pete correctly pointed out, was indeed family. And speaking of family, Governor, you're an honorary member of that family because we've spent a lot of time together. And to see the federal family together with the Moore leadership team, the Moore Miller leadership team, together with our federal delegation, together with County Executive Olszewski, together with the mayor. That's what teamwork is about. You know, there are a lot of people across this state and across America who've begun to lose faith in government. They're wondering, can government get things done? Can government get hard things done? Look at the last 11 weeks of partnership here. Getting things done. This is a textbook case study on everybody working together. Egos all checked at the door. The unified command understanding that we are all going to succeed, but we all succeed only when we all succeed. And that's what this has been about, moving forward. You know, Governor, you mentioned Donald, the longshore person. And I met Donald earlier today along with a number of other workers. And Donald said to me, and I actually wrote it down because it really struck me. And by the way, he was deathly afraid that if his wife found out that he had bought a car 3 hours earlier, she was going to be really not happy about that. Am I right about that? Okay. And Donald said in our meeting, you know, we're in trouble as a family. We're in trouble as a state. We're in trouble as a region. That was your fear in the hours after this. Well, I'm here to say that when families work together, as we have done, the federal family, the state family, our local family, our business partners, our community partners, and all of the people who contributed to help the victims and their families. This is truly a case study on how to get things done. And we all are well aware, as the governor correctly pointed out, that while we celebrate this moment and mark this milestone, a milestone that I would be willing to bet many people said would never be met, but it was met. As we mark this milestone, I appreciate, Governor, your understanding that while we're trying to get things back to normal, there will be a new abnormal for the families of Alejandro Hernandez Fuentes, Jose Lopez, Dorian Cabrera, Miguel Luna, Minor Suazo Sandoval, y Carlos Hernandez Estrella. They are indeed our heroes. Their lives will never be the same, the families. And we understand at this moment that we don't leave anyone behind, as you have always said, Governor, and as you practice in your actions. And we will not leave them behind, nor will we leave anyone behind. We were proud in the federal family, as Pete pointed out, the investments from the Transportation Department that were so quick, the Small Business Administration, helping literally thousands of people, small businesses, apply for loans and give out about $25 million in loans. The Labor Department acting quickly, and your Labor Department, under the leadership of the best Labor Secretary in Maryland history, Portia Wu. She understood, Governor, she understood that we need to get money in people's pockets. We were able to help in some capacity, but you were able to help even more. And you acted quickly with the partnership and leadership from the legislature. And as a result, the fears that Donald reflected, and those were fears that were reflected in families not only here but across the region. Those fears have not materialized because we've had your backs and we'll continue to have your back. So we're going to continue, as President Biden correctly pointed out, to move heaven and earth. Got a little more earth to move, but we have the team in place. And as the President said, it is the commitment of the federal government to fund 100% of the construction of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. And your federal delegation is working tirelessly to ensure that. And we're going to continue to be with you every step of the way. And speaking of every step of the way, the next person I have the privilege of introducing was one of those people every step of the way. He's a person whose name you may not have known before March 26th. But when Maryland and the history books write the story of how we came together, Rear Admiral Galbraith, you will be a big part of that story. Welcome aboard.
Good afternoon. This story starts and it ends with people. It starts with the lives of 6 people who were tragically lost on the morning of March 26th. But fortunately, the story does not end there. Along the way, we added a ton of people to bring this story to today's conclusion. We added first responders, firefighters, policemen, Coast Guard sentinels who showed up on the water to search for victims. We added more people as the Unified Command stood up. The Army Corps of Engineers, the Department of Maryland Environment, the State Police from Maryland. All of those people came to this event to help, to be part of the solution. And they formed an incredible unified command that I could not be prouder of all the efforts from the local level, the state level, the federal level. You have set the standard for unity of effort for future unified commands. I'm so proud of you. You met every objective that was laid out for you. You recovered the victims, you protected Chesapeake Bay, and you've reopened this port. Thank you for your hard work. Now, along the way, we had a lot of other people that helped us. And so, Governor Moore, I want to say thank you to you personally for your leadership and your support for this unified command. and in particular for the trust that you showed us and this team of people that came to work. That trust made all the difference in speed. It's why in 2.5 months, we've got the channel reopened and cleared, the dolly removed from the waterway there, and we've got the port reopened. So that trust makes a world of difference. So Governor, thank you for your trust. Thank you. Thank you also, and to the elected officials in Maryland at every level of government, thank you for your support and trust as well. Because while the Unified Command was focused on those objectives I just said, you were focused on taking care of the rest of the community. You were focused on finding ways to help the port workers. You were focused on finding ways to improve the supply chain. Mr. Secretary, thank you for that help, relieving some of that pressure that would have been even harder on the Unified Command. They had enough of a hard task in front of them. You helped relieve that pressure. So thank you all for helping take that pressure off their backs and letting them focus on their jobs. That made the difference. So thank you. I also want to say a special thank you to the community and the people of Baltimore and Maryland. When the governor says, "You're Maryland tough and Baltimore strong," he truly means it, and I believe it. And I just want to thank you for the support you've provided the Unified Command and the salvors and the workers who've been doing this for this entire 2.5 months. It's made a difference. When we check in at a hotel, we go eat at a restaurant, we see you on the street somewhere, or we see you on the water, and you say, "Thank you. How can I help you? What's going on?" That interest, that caring, that support, that love that we feel, it makes a difference to making this team go faster as well and stay motivated. So thank you. And finally, I want to say thank you to the maritime community. Thank you for your support, for working with us to open alternate channels so we could begin to move commerce to the conclusion of this week on Monday when we got that full 700-foot wide, 50-foot channel reopened. Thank you for that work and support. I'm so proud of that opportunity to work with you. Unified Command is proud of that opportunity to work for you, and you made a tremendous difference. So thank you very much, and congratulations on a terrific port reopening. I'll now turn it over to Major General Butch Graham.
All right. Thank you. It's always good going towards the end here when all the good lines have been taken. 700 foot wide, 50 feet deep, Baltimore's back in business. Delighted to see. Three quick points just want to highlight to add emphasis to what's already been said. First point, as the governor said, that this massive operation was done safely. We do a lot of diving in the Corps of Engineers, and this is some of the most hazardous diving that I've ever been part of. There were 0 lost time accidents is a credit to the crane operators, the divers, the mariners, the salvage experts who were working below, on, and high, way high above the Patapsco River since 30 March. Governor Moore, we appreciate your leadership to know that safety comes first and everybody gets to go home at the end of the day. Thank you, sir. As we remember the 6 lives tragically lost, we celebrate, as you heard today, the teamwork that enabled this mission to succeed. With clear direction from President Biden and Governor Moore, the Unified Command, superbly led by Coast Guard Captain David O'Connell, who I think is at his son's high school graduation today, brought together the expertise resident across the entire federal family, the state of Maryland, and the amazing city of Baltimore. This whole of government team was successful in working together to reopen this vital supply chain. It's great to hear everything backing up there. It was eerie when this port was as quiet as it was. That cacophony is a delight to see. As you heard earlier, you set the standard. As we head into a busy, busy hurricane season, the teamwork that was showed here certainly sets the standard for me. Last point. I want to personally call out the Navy's Supervisor of Salvage and Diving, led by Captain Sal Suarez and Director Paul Hankins. Paul, I'm going to ask you to stand up because I know you don't want to. Their world-class expertise, coupled with the superb capability of their contractor, Don John Marine from Newark, New Jersey, they made today possible. So Governor Moore, as an Army vet living in a Navy town, it's no surprise to you
that the Army and the Navy make a great joint team.
They sure do.
Yeah, thanks for that. Okay, so one last person to embarrass here today. Colonel Esty Pinchason. Go ahead and stand up, Esty. Esty, we're proud of what you accomplished, you and the entire Baltimore team. So I know you're going to hate me to say this, but as you head into the last few weeks of command and look forward to being a staff officer again, this is an awfully good note to leave command on. You certainly proved a great example of what committed and compassionate leadership looks like. You certainly live up to the Army motto, being all you can be. Esty, we salute you and the Baltimore team. Mission accomplished. Well done. Thank Baltimore County Executive.
Thank you, General Graham, and good afternoon to all. It is an honor to be with you today. You know, in my nearly 6 years of serving as county executive, I've had my fair share of early morning calls. And as the governor has reminded us before, these calls are never for a good reason. The call that came from our fire chief the morning of March 26th will go down as probably the toughest of all of those calls. It was a call that marked the beginning of a scramble, first to save lives, later to recover victims and help bring closure to grieving families, to help communities process what devastation a bridge collapse really means to our economy, to our transportation network, and to even our emotional well-being. The collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge was a tragedy of unprecedented proportions. Needless to say, it has been a difficult 11 weeks. But it's also been an 11 weeks where we have shown incredible strength, resilience, and through which we have literally shown the entire world just how amazing our communities are in the Baltimore region and across Maryland. And we have done that together. I am so grateful for the incredible partnership that has powered that work. You know, in local government, we're tasked to do it all. We fill in gaps and we meet needs, but that would have been impossible without President Biden, without Tom Perez and Secretary Buttigieg, without Governor Moore and Lieutenant Governor Miller, without the Speaker of the House, the Senate President, our partners in state and local government from Baltimore City, Anne Arundel County, Carroll County, Cecil County, without the U.S. Coast Guard, without Rear Admiral Gilreath, without Captain O'Connell, without Colonel Butler and the Maryland State Police, without the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, of course, General Graham, Colonel Pinchason. It would not have been possible without MDOT and Secretary Wiedefeld, without the ILA and your incredible team, Mr. President, without Trade Point Atlantic, without our local business leaders, and more. It'd be impossible without our federal delegation. So I know I speak for all my colleagues in government, especially in local government, including Mayor Scott, County Executive Pittman, when I just say I want to offer our sincere thanks. The work here has been nothing short of miraculous, clearing this channel in record speed to make for the full restoration of services at the Port of Baltimore, allowing our constituents, our family, and our friends to get back to work, and giving us hope that soon enough, with that same partnership and that same cooperation, we will have a brand new bridge and be more wholly back to that full sense of normalcy in life. Thank you, and God bless. It is now my pleasure to welcome for remarks someone who has been an incredible advocate for the men and women who do the work at the Port of Baltimore, someone who's been a fierce advocate for the men and women of ILA Local 333, President Scott Cowan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Big day in the Port of Baltimore and a very big day for the ILA. While this is, you have a 700-foot, 50-foot deep channel here in the Port of Baltimore today, they over-delivered a little bit. We were working a few weeks ago. The Army Corps of Engineers and the Coast Guard made it possible to get every ship that we could handle in here over the last several weeks. So thank you very much for that. While many of us depended during COVID-19, depended on the ILA to unload ships and get goods to market, the ILA here in Baltimore was dependent on others this time. I'd like to thank all the salvers, Don John Marine, Resolve, Sanska, the dredging contractors of America, especially Cashman Dredging. It wasn't only the steel that they were taking out of that river. Those good old Irish boys were digging that debris off the bottom so we could get the 50-foot draft to get these ships in here. So that's a big deal. And for the Unified Command, thank you so much. We were dependent on you guys. Without you, it wouldn't have happened. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our international president, Harold Daggett, executive vice president, Dennis Daggett, CEO of United States Maritime Alliance, Dave Adam, executive vice president of USMX, Paul DeMaria. They were the first ones to provide relief to the longshoremen within a week from the bridge collapse. Then, the week after the bridge collapsed, we had a meeting right down here in Shed 4. The governor came, several other elected officials, and the governor made a commitment to me and to the men and women of the ILA that he was going to take care of us. He had our backs, and sir, your word is good, because that's what you did. A lot of times in this industry, it's a tough industry, it's very competitive. We were a wounded port. And believe me, as soon as that bridge fell down, other ports were looking to take our cargo. I know the main focus of the federal government was not to screw up the supply chain. We couldn't have that. The whole country depends on that. But if this channel wouldn't have got opened in the speed it did, we would have took a very big loss of cargo to other ports. And that could have been devastating to the men and women of the ILA. I also want to thank Senate President Bill Ferguson, Senator Johnny Ray Salling for getting behind the Port Act. You guys pushed that through. Delegate Luke Clippinger and the House of Representatives, you guys made that happen. And without that, a lot of the ILA members wouldn't have been able to stay. That's bipartisan. This country ought to take a little bit of a lead on that and look at that a little bit closer. Secretary Wu and your staff at the Maryland Department of Labor, you've been with us every step of the way. Thank you so, so much. Executive Director Jonathan Daniels and your staff at the Maryland Port Administration. I must have called you every day for like 60 days straight, several times a day, and you always picked up. And if you couldn't, you sent me a text and got back to me. So you kept my nerves down a little bit, and I appreciate that. Secretary Wiedefeld, thank you as well. I don't know any Secretary of Transportation for any state would want to deal with this thing. The Baltimore Community Foundation. They stepped up to the plate and helped the ILA members with a grant, and it will not be forgotten. I know some of those folks are here today, and thank you so, so much for the Ravens and the Orioles donating money to the Baltimore Community Foundation. It's you know, most people wouldn't have received the relief that the ILA members did here in the Port of Baltimore. If you were in another job, the only thing you would have received is unemployment. Well, a longshoreman makes a good living, and unemployment wouldn't have cut it to put food on the table and pay the bills for some of these folks. If these people wouldn't have stepped up, we'd have had a hard road to tow. Luckily, we had that help, and believe me, all the members of the ILA appreciate it. And lastly, I got to thank my partner, Atlantic Coast District, Mike Coe, Vice President Mike Coe, Vice President of Local 333. We were on this thing every day for 2 months, from Annapolis to Baltimore and everywhere in between. my staff at Local 333, the local leadership of Local 953, and the local leadership of ILA Local 1429. They did a tremendous job for the members, and that's what matters to us the most. And to all the members of the ILA, all three locals, the port's back open for business. Let's go. Let's get the cargo in here, and let's put this thing in the past, and let's move forward. Thank you. You're going to hear from my partner, Mark Schmidt, who runs Ports America. Mark and the other employers kept a lot of the ILA folks working. Ports America, SSA, Tartan Terminals, Mid-Atlantic Terminal. They kept a lot of our folks on the payroll when they didn't have to. So I'm going to turn it over to Mark now. And Mark, thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you for the support and partnership over the years. As we remember the 6 men who lost their lives during the Key Bridge collapse, it's important to acknowledge the value of their work, and that work needs to continue as we recover as a unified community. And the recovery efforts have been phenomenal. And we want to thank the Unified Command, specifically the United States Coast Guard and the United States Army Corps of Engineers, for their immediate and tireless response that not only reopened the federal channel ahead of schedule, but minimized the disruption to a vital artery in America's supply chain. And we thank them. We want to also thank Governor Wes Moore, Secretary Paul Wiedefeld, and Executive Director Jonathan Daniels for their unwavering leadership in the community during this unprecedented event. We thank you and thank you all. As a proud member of Maryland Tough and Baltimore Strong Alliance, led by the Baltimore Committee, Greater Baltimore Committee for Ports America Chesapeake, kept their entire staff, along with 350 ILA members employed, and we thank them for their dedication as they maintained equipment, improved our facilities, and took the opportunity for additional training. We thank them so that we can get back to servicing our customers better than before. Other Alliance members committed more than $15 million to support recovery efforts. These dollars are going towards immediate and ongoing relief needs, such as supporting port workers and their families and other community organizations. Thank you. Over the next month, we're expecting 97 vessel calls, with operations at pre-closure levels by mid-July. By mid-July. Tribute to us all. With this momentum, through our partnership with the ILA, the Maryland Port Administration, we at Ports America Chesapeake are eager to continue to grow and fortify the business at the Port of Baltimore. Thank you, and thank everyone here for their attendance. We appreciate it. I'd also like to reintroduce the Governor for final words. Thank you very much.
Hey, Baltimore, we're back. It's time. It's time. Each and every one of you, this is our win. We're so grateful. We're so thankful. We are ready to get back to work. This is Maryland's decade. This is our time. And we thank all of you for everything you continue to do to make it so. God bless you guys, and thank you so much for making today happen. Thank you. Thank you.